Hey guys, Dark Skeleton here, and you might not know this, but one of my favorite champions for the longest time in League of Legends has actually been Mordekaiser. He's been, I wouldn't say totally useless to play, but unless you build a really bursty mage, manage to take someone out in a team fight, and then use their ghost effectively, he's not been such in a good place as a champion. No one really plays him. So, finally, Riot decided to go ahead and give him some changes. About 20 patches too late, but finally. And they're pushing him more into kind of a tanky role with a little bit more utility. As a result, I was wondering, with these changes, can he actually jungle or support? Now first on jungling, since his shield scales on percent of max HP, if you want the shield to be effective in the jungle, you would have to actually stack more HP at the start, which is generally considered a horrible idea on most champions just because you gotta get that damage to get an effective clear. In addition to that, and maybe even worse so, is the fact that their passive now only gives you 30% of the shield value when your spells hit a minion, and that also applies to jungle minions. Before, the shield granted 35% of your damage dealt, but it was cut in half for minions, not 30%. You combine both of those things, and then I think that the fact that Mordekaiser had that shield before as an advantage in the jungle really doesn't mean anything. It doesn't generate enough shield for him to easily survive the jungle. Before you could at least clear the jungle, but now I don't think there's any reason at all to even humor the idea. You're better off just picking someone like Garen. Who, by the way, is not a good jungler, but his passive does eventually work on jungle minions at least. Now, as for support, which is the role that I most frequently play in terms of League of Legends, and I do play real supports too, like Sona and Leona, and, well, yeah, Thresh on occasion too, and all those other goody champions that have a lot of crowd control and actually contribute something to the team when they're played as a support. Now, Mordekaiser has always been really terrible in the support role because, effectively, all he is a big, meaty, easily kiteable champion that has absolutely no CC. Easily kiteable is pretty bad in the bottom lane because ADCs will just poke you down. You're just asking for them to trade back at you the second you run up and hit them. And then the fact that he has no CC still is not at all made up for the fact that he has that creeping death change. Now, currently in the PBE, the creeping death is actually bugged. It doesn't do the effect where when you cast creeping death on an ally, it also casts on Mordekaiser itself, which I think is a nice change, and in team fights is really going to be quite a big deal. But even if you had that in the lane on the PBE right now, I don't think it would be helpful at all. And the reason for that is that the ADC is always behind you as Mordekaiser. The Creeping Death is an AoE that's in melee range, which your opponents aren't going to be melee range. They're going to be an ADC and very likely a ranged support, or a support like Leona that only goes in when a fight's breaking out. So the fact that Creeping Death casts on both you and the ADC is only going to matter when you're getting jumped on, which probably means the 3v2 because the jungler just came in to kill you, and you don't want to fight that anyway because you will die. And then the movement speed buff you and your ally get while you're running towards each other is of limited use too. I could see it like if Mordekaiser's way far out in the lane, and then Caitlyn or whoever your ADC is at the turret, you're trying to get to the turret. Yeah, the 60 movement speed will help a little bit. But as far as offensive measures go, the ADC probably isn't going to be in front of you leading the charge, so you're not going to get a bonus to move up to her, and even if you did, you would want to be in front in the first place. So yeah, the Creeping Death change, pretty irrelevant in terms of a support lane. In fact, you could argue that a support Mordekaiser is even worse than they would have been beforehand, because building pure damage on Mordekaiser isn't going to be as strong as it was before you have those lower AP ratios. You could argue if you built damage on Mordekaiser, then yeah, you could kind of harass in the lane and maybe put some damage out if they decided to jump on your ADC. But nowadays, with the changes, the AP ratio hits, Mordekaiser just should not be a support, should not be in the jungle. Once they fix Creeping Death to work as intended, though, I think Mordekaiser might actually make a decent fighter-type top laner, because by building armor and HP, he might actually have the durability with the shield changes to be able to walk into a fight and not die. And then you can throw in a little bit of AP with Revitalize or the Liandry's Torment, and then people can't completely ignore you, Being able to creeping death on your ADC in a team fight would also be pretty good, especially considering Mordekaiser's going to have that buff too, so he'll be able to get the damage and protect your ADC a little bit. But yes, as you might expect, support in jungle Mordekaiser, no chance in hell. Stick him to the middle and top lanes.